There has, of course, been a lot of talk about Mr. Nixon as an albatross. Is it your judgment that if Mr. Nixon were to decide tonight that he wanted to become a poet or whatever, and eliminate himself without any sort of residual stigma, under such circumstances as those, would you project that the party would have an easier time in November?
Well, you're not going to like this answer because I know of your intellectual alacrity, but I am not going to get into these hypotheses because this isn't going to happen. He's not, I know and respect the views of a very distinguished senator from New York named Buckley, who I read carefully what he said. I also sort of saw what his brother said in Kansas City and read it. But I don't, I think so much of that depends, if I were going to delve into the hypothetical world, I think a lot would depend on how that came about. Because my view is it's wrong for the president to resign. It's wrong for him to be forced out of office. The system's got to work. The system will work in fairness, and I remain rather convinced that the system will not compel the president to leave office.
You disturbed me when you alluded to the old picture of the Democrats as the you know, big city machine and the dead people voting and all that, and
I said that's my own feeling of where the corruption came from. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, and well, that certainly was. I mean, the Democrats are crooks and the Republicans were the yes. I've heard Republicans do this before, and it strikes me as a very poor strategy at any rate, because it sends shivers down one's spine, because most of us, I think, agree that there's a qualitative difference between what happened, not the break-in, but what happened afterwards, and the usual kind of underhanded Democratic...
kind of stealing elections and dead people voting,
yes,
and corruption of robbing and getting rich on the from stealing from cities and stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, there is a difference. I think
well,
you're right.
Would you tell me how you see that difference?
I see both of them is very bad for our system. Both of them just as wrong as they can be. I think both from... I'm motivated. You won't believe this. But, you know, I was living happily out of politics, and I got involved in it for certain idealistic reasons. And my idealism has been all challenged and all mixed up by the ugliness of Watergate. I think it's wrong. I don't like the people that have kind of... And I don't want to prejudge some trials still going on, but I don't like it. I don't like that thing. But I am not... I can't seem to come to the point that well, it's all right to steal from a city. It's all right to vote to steal an election, possibly steal a presidential election, and that's one kind of corruption. But the kind of corruption attributed to people breaking into Larry O'Brien's telephone is so much worse. Can't accept it. Sorry.
Well, what about not breaking in and
listening to this little guy talking about whatever it was he was talking to on the telephone? That's what I'm talking about. Breaking into water or covering up the fact
or
that that had happened.
Or tampering the agencies. Let's take that.
Don't like that either.
Well,
offended by it.
Do you put
Not
that
sure I know the facts on it. System will bring that out.
Yes, but do you put that in a different category of horror than, say,
it's awful hard to quantify my moral indignation, but I find it a little troubling that some people are so deeply offended about those allegations you just talked to and are untroubled, unwilling to investigate.
By sending FBI agents to steal representatives at 5 o'clock in the morning, for instance.
Well, I'm offended by all of it.
Tends to be manipulating the agencies, doesn't it?
Yes, I suppose. What I mean is that I think we would both agree that the idea that it was just bad luck, the Republicans got caught, this kind of thing happens in politics all the time, is an extremely unsophisticated notion that anybody who knows... I haven't talked to any veteran of politics who would agree with that. They would say this is a new level that we're into here.
Well, look, I think it's wrong. I think it offends me. I don't like to go home and see my kids turned off from the political process from reading about this. I'm troubled by it deeply, individually. Everybody that knows me and personally, I think, knows that, all of which is unimportant in terms of I'm just trying to air my own view so you won't think that Republicans are kind of rationalizing Watergate by saying we don't like what's been going on for years in some of the big cities or in some of the elections. But I am a little amazed at some of the morality, the moral judgments being made this is just unparalleled in our history. How do we know? Who else has had bared his soul like this? Who else? Do you think there are ever expletives issued by Lyndon Johnson, or anything else that might have been looked into? How would the Bay of Pigs look in 1974?
I'm not talking about expletives.
Well, what are we talking about?
I'm talking about the kind of abuse of power where you see.
Well, let's go back to the Bay of Pigs. Analyze it microscopically. Look at it carefully. Did that offend your morality at the time? Were you just giving up on your government and all its institutions because you were so deeply offended by what we did in the Bay of Pigs?
She was in kindergarten during the Bay of Pigs.
Yeah, but she's very bright. She probably was.
I was very offended by the Bay of Pigs, not for...
You've written some stuff on it lately to show the prostitution of government agencies?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I did.
Well, I'd love to see it, because it hadn't get the Post to print it, because they haven't done a good job on it.
Are you sorry?
You see my point at all?
Watergate? Is that what you're saying?
Huh?
Are you sorry that the Post broke Watergate? Are you sorry?
No,
that this...
I'm sorry that Watergate exists. It offends
But
me.
given the fact that it exists, are you sorry that it was exposed?
Absolutely not. I want to see it out, examined, laid to rest in the system.
Do you think the
Not through suggesting that, incidentally, that through the leak or the innuendo or the preconception or the kind of secret grand jury thing leaked a little ahead of time, through the system. That's what I want to see happen. And I think it's happening. And long after people can't remember how you spell Strawn or whatever name might have been fairly or unfairly dragged into it, they're going to remember that the system does indeed work. And hopefully out of it will come some meaningful reform, not the Washington Post version of turning it all over to the federal government. That isn't the answer. But some meaningful reform in terms of campaign financing or whatever it is. And hopefully a reawakening of a certain moral sense. But this kind of a latter-day recognition, or this suggestion that the breaking into the Democratic headquarters is something so much, and the attendant things there too, I'll give you that, is so much worse than anything else that's ever happened, or that makes people all corrupt, and then they link in 2 cabinet officers, one of whom has now been acquitted. I just can't accept it. And I'm more troubled about it than you are. It's made my life a hell of a lot more complicated than yours too.
It's made yours much more enjoyable, hasn't it?
I've only been here for a week.